What's up, everybody? Dan Sports News here, bringing you the 9th episode of the Dansportsnews and Friends podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at I am Dan Sports News, Twitter at Dan Sports News, and Facebook at Dan Sports News to catch all my news in sports. Today's guest is Josh Booty, who played in the MLB for the Florida Marlins and won a World Series championship, and he played in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks, Cleveland Browns, and the Oakland Raiders. He shares his story of being a two-sport pro athlete. Check it out. So growing up, what other sports did you play besides baseball and football?
Man, I played a little basketball. I've always been a huge basketball nut. I just loved it, but I knew that wasn't going to be a sport for me. So my dad was a football coach. He played a lot of slow pitch softball when I was growing up, so I was always at the ballpark playing baseball, and I really just fell in love with the sport. More baseball when I was little. There's nothing like Little League, but as I got older and into high school in the South, high school football is so big, and it was so much fun, and we had so much success. It was hard not to absolutely fall in love with football. So baseball was my first love growing up, and then football became really what I like to do most, when I was 17, 18, later on in life. But I love basketball as well, and I enjoy golf now. I'm a golf fanatic. So, really anything with a ball, man, I love it.
So how did you get started in playing football?
My dad played college football. He was a very, very good football player, and he went to Mississippi State. He was the athletic director and quarterback coach of the high school I went to. So, man, we were always throwing the football in the backyard, and I always enjoyed throwing it. So it was he was a quarterback, and I wanted to be like him. So that's really why I probably developed into a quarterback at a young age. I fell in love with it because he played it, and we were always out in the yard throwing it. And I have three little brothers. One of them was a receiver with me in high school and in college, actually, and in the NFL. And we'd always play, in the backyard, and he was a receiver, I was a quarterback. So we had kind of a built-in little thing going.
So when did you pick up baseball?
Oh, man, I played baseball as early as, 5, 6 years old, and T-ball was, available to us. I mean, you don't really play tackle football when you're that young, but you can play T-ball. So my dad got me into sports, and I was always, even in the house, I think I was always hitting with the ball or hitting a ball off a tee when I was barely able to stand up. That's what they got me doing in the yard and stuff like that. So it was always a part of my life, man. Baseball. I played more baseball than any kid alive. That's all I thought about when I was a little kid. I didn't think about nothing else. But as soon as school was over, I was back home trying to put a game together, and it was always wiffle ball in the backyard or playing some baseball somewhere. Man, I just loved it.
Right. So I know you're from Louisiana, and Peyton Manning is from there. Did you ever play against him in high school, or was he on the other side of the state?
He was on the other side of the state in a different class, so we never played each other in the playoffs or even in regular season. So we always knew each other because we were the top two quarterbacks, and we were the ones going for all the yards, and so he'd keep up with the stats and stuff of all the state leaders. And my dad knew Archie, so so I knew who Peyton was, but we never had to play each other. We got recruited by all the same schools at the same time, so we actually went on our official visit to LSU at the same time, and it was kind of fun to be down there at the same time and get recruited. But we knew he wasn't going to LSU; he was going to go to Ole Miss or Tennessee.
Right.
And LSU was kind of an afterthought, and for me, it was all LSU because of their baseball program at the time, and their football team as well. But it was more of a baseball thing for me.
So, senior season of baseball, I read you had 429. What happens after high school baseball, getting ready for the draft? How does that all work out?
Yeah, man. I mean, I tried to have as good a senior season as I could in the spring of my senior year. No one really pitched to me, so it was like they were all. I think I drew like 29 intentional walks for that year, and so no one was throwing me much to hit, and I really just had to be patient as much as I could. And then after the season, all I did was train. Continue to train and play some wood bat games in the area with some college kids and wait for the June amateur draft. So there was a month or two in there where I didn't really, I didn't really know what to do between spring baseball and the June draft. I just continued to train and try to get stronger and hit with the wood bat a little bit and get ready for, professional baseball if I was to get drafted high, and that's what happened.
Right, so the Florida Marlins draft you 5th overall in the draft, and you get a $1.6 million signing bonus. What was that like, finding out that you got drafted?
It was good. It was good at the time because no one had ever received that type of deal, and they were a new franchise, so I knew there wasn't a lot of prospects ahead of me in the organization, so it was more than just the money at the time for me. It was the opportunity and to get to the big leagues faster, and that's what it's all about, getting to the big leagues. And I wanted to fast track it to the big leagues. I was happy I got drafted by a new franchise that didn't have, a log jam of prospects at my position, and I knew I was going to fast track it to the big leagues if I didn't get hurt. And so I was super pumped to be drafted by Miami or Florida at that time, and to start working my way towards the minors, but up the minor league system. So it was an eventful time of my life because I wasn't sure if I was going to end up going to college and playing football or go the baseball route. But when they offered me the things that they offered, I couldn't turn it down.
Right. So, what was the process like playing in the minor league system, and then eventually getting called up to the big leagues?
Sure. I mean, it was very tough because everybody knew who I was, and that I had signed the biggest deal in draft history. So everybody's kind of gunning to all the pitchers are trying to get me out extra hard. They were game planning, and they, I was somebody that they, I think, earmarked to try to get out and pitch hard to and stuff like that. But I was such a young kid, man, compared to a lot of the pitchers that I was facing in the minors, because a lot of the kids had come out of college and had been in the minor leagues for a while, and I had just come out of high school. So, man, I was fresh. I was fresh out of high school trying to compete with a wood bat and against, a lot of older players. And, I mean, that was what I remember the most, is that I was so young and everybody seemed to be a little older than me, and most of them had been to college and things like that. So I had to catch up pretty fast.
Right. And you ended up winning a World Series with the Marlins in '97, right?
Yeah. I had called up in '97. I was in Double-A all year in Portland, Maine, and our starting third baseman on the big league team, Bobby Bonilla, who of course was a kind of a household name at the time. He had a hamstring problem, and they brought me up in August and September. Got to play in some ball games, and then they kept me around for the playoff run. And so I was around the clubhouse and with the team the whole time of the playoffs, and Bobby Bo was able to play, but I was kind of there to in case anything happened or if they needed me. And so I was there for the World Series run, which was kind of cool. I didn't get any at bats in the World Series, but I was on the team, and again, I was so young, but it was an amazing experience.
Right. I do know Bobby Bonilla, Moises Alou, and Gary Sheffield are some of the big name players
Yeah,
who you played with. What was it like playing with
yeah,
them?
yeah, man. Those guys were awesome. I mean, Sheffield is one of my favorite players ever, and one of my favorite guys. Just a real bulldog and a tough out, and could really swing it, could really run, could really throw. Was just a really good all around player, and loved the game of baseball. Man, he's still doing the Fox stuff and loves baseball. I mean, he is a baseball guy, and he's a tremendous athlete. And then Moises Alou, one of the nicest guys ever. I talked to him last year. I was down in the Dominican and got a chance to speak with him, and I hadn't talked with him for probably 10 years, and it was such a pleasure to get to talk to him. But he's a wonderful baseball family, of course, with Felipe and all the Lou's and all them just wonderful people. And who else did you mention?
Oh, well, yeah, it was Bobby Bonilla, yeah. What was it like with him?
Oh yeah, Bobby. Yeah, Bobby was great. I mean, he got me my glove contract. He introduced me to so many people. I could tell how, he was just a great guy and a good dude in the clubhouse. Of course, big leg kick, batted fourth, hit for power. That's the kind of player I wanted to be. So I looked up to him a ton, and he was one of the ultimate gamers.
Right. So you played 5 years total of pro baseball, right?
Yep. Four full seasons in the minors and parts, in the big leagues, but most of the time just trying to get through the minors.
Right. So when did you decide you wanted to put down the glove and bat and pick up the pigskin?
Yeah, in 1998 I got hurt. I was on the opening day team with the Marlins and in the big leagues, and I got hurt about a month into the season. And when I came back at the end of the year, they sent me down to AAA to get some at bats to come off the IR, and I really struggled hitting. And then that was it in September or late August, September, and they called me in the offseason and said, "We're probably going to start you in AAA and again next year." And so I was like, man, I'm going to go back and play college football if I can. And Wayne Huizinga, who was the owner of the Marlins at the time, sold the team to John Henry, who now owns the Red Sox. Well, Henry was not the guy that paid me the money to sign back in 1994 initially. So I talked to, I had my agent talked to Dombrowski, and who was the GM at the time for the Marlins, and Henry, and said, can we get Josh on the football field? He wants to go back and play football and see, try that sport right now. And so I was able to get out of the contract in 1998, 1998, and go back to play college football.
So how old are you when you made your college football debut?
Ooh, I was probably 24 years old at LSU. I was a little older. I was probably, 3 or 4 years older than most of the kids on the team, but hadn't played football in 4 or 5 years. So, it was quite a experience. We didn't have a real good football team at the time at LSU, not near like they have now. And so I wasn't surrounded by just unbelievable athletes. We had a few great athletes, but we weren't as deep and as talented as LSU is now. So it was very, very tough for us. We really struggled on the offensive line. We had a lot of injuries, and we just had a real tough year. But man, it was super fun being back in the sport. I just wish we would have had a little bit more success early.
Right. Yeah, I understand what you're saying about being a little older than the other college athletes. Your story kind of reminds me of Brandon Whedon, another guy who played
Yeah,
baseball. And then I think he was like
sure.
29 when he got drafted, so yeah.
Yeah, he was a little he was even older than I was, and I think Chris Winkie is another example. I don't think those guys played any big league baseball.
Right. Yeah.
I think they were just low minor league guys or
Right.
double A guys. I don't know how far we went, but those are some guys that played baseball. There was a lot of guys that played baseball during around that time that tried to go back and play football. Drew Henson, Quincy Carter. Trying to think of some that tried it. That went back. Chad Hutchinson at Stanford went back and played some football. But yeah, there was a group of us that were dual sport guys.
Right. Well, back to college football. Nick Saban was actually your coach, right?
Yeah, he came in the second year. The first year was Jerry DiNardo. He got fired. Nick Saban came in the second year and really changed everything that we were doing. We practiced harder and smarter. He built an unbelievable staff. He recruited well, and he built an unbelievable program at LSU. And I was a part of his first team. Of course, I was his first quarterback there at LSU.
And Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator?
Yeah, he was offensive coordinator. So Saban really concentrates more on defense until game day. And then he's kind of a game manager guy and deals with a lot of the offensive stuff. But, during practice, it was all me and Jimbo. So I really developed a strong bond with Jimbo.
Right. So what was it like playing for those two coaches who are big name coaches now?
Oh, they're both awesome. Jimbo, they're a lot alike. I mean, to be honest with you, Saban's a little bit more refined in terms of he's just more of a head guy. Jimbo at the time was young, aggressive, kind of a shit talker. He was a lot of fun. He recruited. He was a really good recruiter. Of course, Saban is the best recruiter ever. But both of them were a lot alike. I mean, they paid attention to every single little thing, and they did not accept losing, or they did not accept, bad days. And so consistency was the key to really, the team's success and what they really wanted out of all the players every day was consistently get better, consistently improve, consistently, play well, bring your A game, compete consistently. And that's what we all, began to do. And it just was something that caught on, really well at LSU. And, after I left, they ended up winning a national championship with those guys at the, coaching at the helm.
Right. So how many years did you play college football?
2.
And then you entered the draft after junior year, or did you play senior year?
My junior year. No, after junior year, I entered the draft, and I got drafted by Seattle. I didn't really know where I was going to end up. I thought I was going to be, second, third round guy, and ended up, a lot of quarterbacks started falling down, and no one was choosing them. And I don't know. I really thought I was going to go to the Cowboys. To be honest with you, I talked to Jerry Jones the night before the draft, and he said we're going to choose you in the third round. And then the draft came along, and he picked a guy named Quincy Carter from Georgia in the second round, who I played against, and Quincy's a nice guy, but I thought I thought I was a lot better than Quincy, but he went with him, and then everybody began to fall. You fall, a round or two, and that's what happened to me. We just kind of fell down to teams that actually needed quarterbacks, and it was later in the draft.
Right. And that was the 2001 NFL draft, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so Michael Vick won, and Drew Brees also was in there.
Yeah, I think Winkie was in that draft as well. But yeah, Vick went 1 overall, and I was really good friends with Drew. at the time, and he was, of course, San Diego grabbed him up, I think, at the end of the first, early second, supplemental too.
So, what was it like playing in the NFL?
Oh man, I spent 3 years in Cleveland, my main 3 years, and very, very tough for me because I was backing up Tim Couch, who was the first pick overall, and he's a great guy, one of my good buddies, but I wanted to play, and then I was sitting on the bench in Cleveland. I mean, no one wants to sit on the bench, but sitting on the bench in Cleveland sucked, and it was cold, and it was like, it's hard to really stay focused when you spend 3 years, sitting there wanting to play and knowing you can play and feeling like you're the best player, the best QB on the team, but yet, you weren't drafted near as high and things of that nature. But I mean, Tim Couch was a really, really good college player, and he was of course, he was the first pick overall. He was our starter and played there for 3 or 4 years. They were going to give him all the opportunity in the world, but he had some shoulder problems and some elbow problems, and he really wasn't the same as he was in college because of injuries. But things probably would have been a lot different if he was healthy, but he wasn't. They still played him.
Right. So, you said Cleveland Browns, right? Yeah, so I'm a Steelers fan, so I know they're rivals. But so you went against guys like Cordell Stewart, I think, and Tommy Maddox back in the day was the quarterback.
Yeah, great guys, man. Cordell was my host at the University of Colorado when I was recruited by Colorado in '94 out of high school, and so I had known Cordell, I'd known him for 6-7 years, and he was at my agency as well. Jeff Morad, Steinberg, and Morad. Steinberg out of Newport Beach, and they had represented me. And so, when you're with your agency, you get to know all the players. And the movie Jerry Maguire was based on Steinberg, and so Steinberg had a really, a big name in the industry. And but Cordell was with those guys. I had known Cordell for quite some time.
Right. So, when did you decide to hang up the NFL jersey and retire from football?
Man, I didn't really want to be honest with you. I was with the Raiders, I think, in 2007 in camp, and it was when Al Davis was still alive, and they had drafted Jamarcus Russell #1 overall. Lane Kiffin, my buddy, was the head coach. He had coached my brother at USC and was named the head coach of the Raiders. He brought me in, and then Jamarcus was playing so bad in preseason that Al Davis kind of freaked out, and we got Dante Culpepper off the street, and I ended up getting released at the same time, which, they needed a guy that had played a lot of football, and Dante was that guy to kind of bridge the gap between, Jamarcus being not ready and ready.
Yeah, I remember Dante. He played with the Vikings, right?
Yeah, and the Raiders.
Right.
For a little bit, played for the Dolphins a little bit. I mean, he tried to play a little, after the Vikings, but he never was the same as he was there when Moss was in town.
Actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he actually got drafted by the MLB but didn't play.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well,
Dante did?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I was going to say you played 2 professional sports at the highest level. Most recently, we've seen guys like Kyler Murray drafted in the MLB and NFL. We know Tim Tebow now playing some baseball. Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, John Elway, Michael Vick, Colin Kaepernick, Johnny Manziel, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, just to name a few. But can you explain what it is like what happens that a guy gets drafted in the MLB even though they only played high school baseball, and then they can play college baseball and then get drafted again?
Yeah, it's 2 different sports, so they allow you to 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 cross over and still be eligible at the college level. But if you play that sport, you can't, go back and, like, you can't play pro baseball and then go back and play college baseball, just because you're playing college football. So every sport is considered different, in the timeline. And so, in the career timeline. So if you choose college football, you can go play pro baseball, but you can't come back and play college baseball. Once you go into pro baseball, you have given up your amateur status, and that's just how it is.
Right. And we also know guys like Deion Sanders and Bo Jackson, but they weren't quarterbacks like you were. Did you ever get to play against any of them in any of the sports? I know Bo Jackson was a few years back.
I played against Deion, yeah. I played against Deion in baseball. Never in football. Played against him when he was with the Braves and the Reds. I remember a story. He hit up in spring training. He hit a ball down the right field line, and of course he's a left-hand hitter. Hit a ball down the right field line. You know how most players round first base and you round second base, to come to third. And I was playing third at the time. Well, he goes straight to first base, hit the bag, complete 90-degree left-hand turn. He didn't round bases. He just went to the base and turned left. Then he went to second base, turned left. And I've never seen a player run the bases like that where he didn't round the bag. I mean, it was like straight to the bag, and then he cut on a dime like a wide receiver on an out cut. You know what I'm saying? And or an in cut, and so that was new to me, man, watching that type of athlete hit a stand-up triple, in a big league spring training game. I was like, wow, this guy got to third base super fast. He was just so fast of an athlete.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. So was there any stadiums that you played in for baseball and football?
That's a great question. Man, no one's ever asked me that. That was an awesome question. I don't think so. I mean, the old like Three Rivers or something. I wasn't around because Heinz Field was around. That's the only place I could think of that could have been like that. Bush Stadium, no. The old, most of these stadiums I played in aren't even existing anymore. But in one way or the other, either football or baseball has built new stadiums. So I don't think I ever did. But that's a heck of a question.
Well, was there maybe a city that you played both in their MLB stadium and their NFL?
Oh yeah. I played against the Jets and the Giants, and I played against the Mets. I played against the Ravens and the Orioles. I think I played against the Braves and the Falcons. Trying to think of some of the teams. I played against the Rockies, but never against the Broncos. Man, that's another good one. Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Cincinnati, all those. Those are definitely teams I played, against in both sports. Philadelphia, I'm sure. The Phillies and the Eagles. That's probably it.
Right. So, now I heard that you actually came out of retirement, sort of, and you were on a reality TV show called The Next Knuckler, and you won. Can you explain that experience?
Yeah, the Major League Baseball Network had asked me to be on the show because R.A. Dickey had won the Heisman and throwing the knuckleball, and they said, we're going to bring in a few former, NFL or college quarterbacks to compete in a reality show to try to teach them how to throw the knuckleball. And if you're any good, then you might have scouts watch you or see you, and I'm like, well, man, I played baseball. I can throw this darn thing, and so I had a big advantage on everybody else, and I had always messed around with the knuckleball out in the outfield, throwing it and stuff like that. So, man, I was able to throw it a lot better than everybody else in the show, and won the reality show, and then Arizona signed me to come to spring training and pitch there. So I went and pitched at Arizona for the Diamondbacks in spring training and threw the knuckleball, man, and pitched against the Giants 3 times, and it was super fun.
Right. And I heard Doug Flutie was on that also.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's awesome.
Now, he must have been like pretty old, like in his 50s, right? Or when he competed on the show?
Yeah, he's like 50 now. Yeah, he's probably 52 now. I don't know. That was like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. So he's definitely, sorry for yawning, he's definitely a little older than I am. So, man, he wasn't throwing it near as hard. I mean, he was probably throwing it 48, now he's probably throwing it 68, the knuckleball.
But if he won, they would have given him like a contract?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think it was just you win money for the show,
Oh, okay. Right.
To win the reality show we won, I think it was like $25 or something.
Oh, okay. Now, there's a question I always want to ask dual sport athletes, and it's great that you're a pro who played both. In your opinion, what makes someone to be considered the greatest athlete of all time? Is it winning the most championships in the respective sport? Because I've Googled greatest athlete of all time, and Michael Jordan comes up, Muhammad Ali comes up, Serena Williams comes up, Tom Brady. In your opinion, what makes someone the greatest athlete of all time? Is it playing the most professional sports, someone like you, showing that they can do a little bit of everything, or is it winning the most championships in the respective sport?
Man, I think you gotta look at more than championships. I think that's a big part of it. They're the best sports player and best athlete are two different things. I think Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, best sports player, maybe of all time. Serena, being a girl, best female athlete of all time. But I think that if you talk about just straight athlete, like the best athlete we've ever seen, I mean, you'd have to throw LeBron in it. You'd have to throw Shaquille O'Neal in it because of the uniqueness of being that big and physical and fast and strong and quick and agile and mobile. I mean, and can run, can dunk. Those basketball players are unbelievable. Kobe Bryant, the Greek freak now. I mean, watching those guys, it's unbelievable. And it's for some reason I think these basketball players are the greatest athletes, that ever walked the face of the earth. I mean, because of how big they are, how fast they are, how they run and jump, use their hand-eye coordination, their feet, their hands. I mean, I just think they're the best athletes in the world. I think guys like Deion and Bo, you could put in the mix, and I just, when you talk about athlete, I don't think you compare Tiger Woods or like a Mike Tyson to, a LeBron or, maybe Michael Jordan. But I just think the basketball players are the most elite athletes of all time. I mean, Usain Bolt is the fastest runner of all time. You'd have to put him in the top 10. But is he the greatest athlete of all time? You got to say a guy like LeBron would be the greatest athlete. I mean, he could play basketball, football, it doesn't matter. But I'm talking about run, jump, shoot. I mean, God, they do everything. It's unbelievable what he can do. pass. It's incredible. I think LeBron's the greatest athlete ever.
Wow, okay. So, for younger kids these days, what would you encourage them to do? Would you encourage them to play more sports? Obviously, at first, when you're younger, you play lots of sports to try and get a feel for which sport you like. But would you tell younger kids to consider to keep playing multiple sports when you get to high school, or just focus on one sport and be great in that?
I'd play a couple. I play all the sports you can play up until you're like 15 or 16, and then you got to really start narrowing it down. So all the way up to your freshman, sophomore year, play as many as you can, and then if you're really wanting to make a run at college or get drafted or some pro stuff, I think you got to choose one, unless you're just super fast. To be honest with you, that's the skill set that I think you would need, to go along with everything else. But I mean, I think if you're super fast, like Kyler Murray's super fast, so he can play center field. He can run and throw. He can run along with being a quarterback. I mean, I think if you're that gifted, you can continue to play both. But if you're just going to be a one sport guy or you're not super gifted, you have to make a decision by the time you're probably 15 or 16, 17 at the latest. And you got to play your junior and senior year as if you just have one sport that you really care about. Unless you throw 98 and you end up, you're playing quarterback for your high school football team, but you throw 98 or something, I think there's no problem playing two sports. But, you got, for most normal guys that aren't super, super gifted, you gotta start narrowing it down by the time you're 16 or 17, there's no doubt.
Right. And one last thing before we wrap it up, because I know you want to finish seeing the Rockets and Warriors game.
Yeah.
If you had to do it all over again, would you still play two sports, or would you stick with just one?
I would probably, because I enjoyed football so much, I would probably go and play, I'd probably go and play football out of high school, and I'd go to the best football program in the country, and one that I would have just super ultimate success. I'd have just awesome success. I'd go to a school where they're throwing the football. They're Clemson. They're Oklahoma. They're a program where if you're starting, you're going to have success. You're going to have great linemen. You're going to have a great defense. You're going to have great running backs, running game, great receivers. I think I went to LSU at a bad time, and I wanted to go there because it was my state school, and I wanted to be the kind of the savior. And it's very hard to do it all, and try to do too much. I tried to do too much, and so I would go to a place where, I wouldn't have to do it all, but yet facilitate it all, and I would just I think I'd be a better player because of it.